وعباد الرحمن الذين يمشون على الأرض هونا وإذا خاطبهم الجاهلون قالوا سلاما.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. صلى الله وسلم وبارك على المبعوث رحمة للعالمين نبينا وإمامنا محمد بن عبد الله عليه من ربه أفضل الصلاة وتم التسليم. أما بعد. Briefly, and shouldn't be briefly, however, looking at the time, first thing that we start off with is thanking Allah Jalla wa Ala for His blessings upon us all, His countless infinite ni'am. And from those ni'am is us to come here and have this meeting with these beautiful faces, mashallah, these bright luminous faces, inshallah, faces of khair, faces of tawheed and sunnah, to be idhnillah azza wa jal hear that which will be a benefit and a reminder, inshallah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And secondly, I thank the brothers, Brother Abdullah, Muhammad Hussein, Brother Ibrahim, the rest of the brothers, Abdullah, Al-Azraq, and the rest of the brothers whose names I haven't yet memorized, who had anything to do with us coming out here to visit you brothers, and who made it simple and easy. May Allah Azza wa Jalla reward them well. And last but not least, we thank all of the brothers and sisters here who've had husn al-dhan, think yani, good of us, perhaps they'll hear something which will be beneficial. Bidnillahi subhanahu wa ta'ala. Briefly, what we want to talk about, as it's announced to you, the adab, some of the etiquettes of seeking knowledge. There is no doubt a 20-minute talk on a topic so important and so paramount is injustice. Bottom line, it's not enough time. However, we can do what we have the ability to do, bi'idhnillahi azza wa jalla. And as the Arabs say, awwalul ghaythi qatarat thumma yanhamir. They say that the beginning of the storm is just a few drops, and then it becomes a torrential pour. So bi'idhnillahi azza wa jalla, this will be a beginning for something that will come later on. Brothers, imams, the different asatidha, teachers, the du'at here, will have more time to expound on this and speak about this in greater detail. Bi'idhnillahi azza wa jalla. There lies no doubt that a talib al-ilm, after learning the obligation of seeking knowledge, after learning the fadl of seeking knowledge, the superiority and its excellence, after understanding the importance of seeking knowledge and how it is so necessary, he needs to know how to seek knowledge and what are the do's and don'ts in his seeking of knowledge. And as one of the ulama of the past said, bil-adabi tafhamul ilm. If you have the proper etiquettes, then you will properly understand knowledge. And if you don't have the proper etiquettes, then you won't properly understand knowledge. We know that in general, before we get into this topic, speaking about adab or khuluq or adab or akhlaq is something that is has a magnificent status in the deen. Allah Azza wa Jalla mentions in the Quran in several places about the akhlaq and the sifat of the believers. The Prophet ﷺ has explained to us that the thing which will be most heavy in the scales of good deeds on the Day of Judgment is good character. The Prophet ﷺ has explained to us the believers who have most complete iman are those who have best character. The Messenger of Allah ﷺ has explained to us the only reason behind him being sent as a prophet and a messenger is to complete the good akhlaq. And the list goes on and on and on. So when we talk about etiquettes and manners, before we even get into ilm, that is something that is azim. It's something that is a great status in the religion. And of course, it will pertain to doing something which is even greater, and that is seeking ilm of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As Shaykh Ilyas, may Allah bless him and preserve him, mentioned, the greatest type of knowledge, and the first type of knowledge is the knowledge of Allah Azza wa Jalla, and that's the Asl al-Ulum. In these few brief moments that we have, I've selected for myself and for my brothers and sisters in Islam to read from one of my favorite books called Akhlaq al-Ulama, the characteristics of the ulama, by the great Imam Abu Bakr al-Ajurri, rahimahullah ta'ala, who was from the mountains of knowledge of the 4th century of the Hijrah. Imam al-Ajurri rahimahullah, he says, باب أوصاف العلماء الذين نفعهم الله بالعلم في الدنيا والآخرة. He says, the chapter of the characteristics of those ulama whom Allah Azza wa Jal has benefited them with knowledge in this life and in the hereafter. And we understand from this chapter, heading in brief, is that there are some people who are given knowledge. There are some people who will seek knowledge, but Allah has not benefited them with their knowledge. And tabihu, everybody who gets knowledge, as Ustad Ilyas said, information, كالحماري كمثل الحمار يحمل أسفارا, like a donkey bearing loads of books. Everyone has a degree or shahada or ijaza or memorized this and that and so on and so forth. Does not mean that Allah Azza wa Jalla has benefited them with their ilm. It doesn't mean that. So here he's going to talk about those ulama whom Allah Azza wa Jalla has chosen and selected. He has given them ilm and He's allowed them to benefit from their ilm. There's a big difference. And if you wish to read more about this, I would advise you to go back to the book Fadl al-Ilm al-Salafi ala Ilm al-Khalaf, the book of Imam Ibn Rajab al-Hanbali rahimahullah, entitled The Excellence and the Superiority of the Knowledge of the Pious Predecessors over the knowledge of the later generations. And in the very beginning part of the book, he talks about انقسام العلم إلى نافع وغير نافع. He talks about how knowledge is categorized into beneficial knowledge and non-beneficial knowledge. And he also speaks about how some knowledge is beneficial itself, but how people use it or people don't use it, and at the end of the day it falls into the category of non-beneficial knowledge. Khair inshallah. The author says, قال محمد بن حسين لهذا العالم صفات وأحوال شتى ومقامات لا بد له من استعمالها. He says, this alim, this learned person, this student, this sheikh, this da'iyah, this person who bears knowledge, who attaches and attributes himself to knowledge, has sifat, he has attributes, and ahwal and maqamat. He has different circumstances, different etiquettes, do's and don'ts. There are different states and affairs and conditions that he's in all of the time. And it is binding for him to adhere to them and to use them. For مُسْتَعْمَلٌ فِي كُلِّ حَالٍ مَا يَجِبُ عَلَيْهِ. He has to use these akhlaq, he has to use these adab in everything that is obligatory upon him. Everything that is obligatory and binding upon him, he has to be clad with akhlaq and with adab. He says, فَلَهُ صِفَةٌ فِي طَلْبِهِ لِلْعِلْمِ كَيْفَ يَطْلُبُهُ. There's a way, there's a characteristic for him to seek knowledge. And that's what we're talking about here. How do you seek knowledge? We've heard the lecture after lecture after lecture. Now, how do I do it? What do I do? Where do I go? How do I memorize? What do I read? Who do I sit with? Who don't I sit with? He has a sifa. There's a way. And before we go on, all of the problems that we may be plagued with today, and the different questions, and Allah Azza wa Jal is the only one who truly knows how many times we've been asked, masjid after masjid, state after state, city after city, country after country. How do I go overseas? What do I do? How do I go to the Jamia? How do I put in my application? When I walked in the door today, Brother Yusuf said, I want to send my sons to Medina. Just walking to the masjid. So we have to realize that the ulama of the past, they have spoken about every single issue. There's nothing that you face today of an obstacle or problem with regards to seeking ilm or da'wah, except that they spoke about it. But the answer, the problem is our taqsir. We don't read enough. We don't go and look into those books. The ulama, they explain what to do. And the purpose of them doing this is to show you, akhi, right there, you, is that you can be an alim. It's possible. It's not impossible. It's not a fantasy, as many people think, or something that's mystic. Oh, the ulama. You can be from the ulama. You can obtain knowledge. You can reach that status. But you have to do how they did it. And you have to read and go back to the foundations that they laid down. So he says there's a way for him to seek ilm when he seeks it. وَلَهُ صِفَةٌ فِي كَثْرَةِ الْعِلْمِ إِذَا كَثُرَ عِنْدُهُ مَا الَّذِي يَجِبُ عَلَيْهِ فِيهِ فَيُلْزِمُهُ نَفْسَهُ. There's another description when the talib, when the alim has abundant knowledge. How do you behave? Are you going to be arrogant and haughty and prideful? You're going to speak down on others, look down upon others? How do you get knowledge when you have a little bit? How do you behave when you have a lot of knowledge? There's a specific way. He then says, and thus you stick to that. And this goes back to what Ustad Ilyas was mentioning, is that it's not enough to have information, but you have to act upon it. You've read the books, now act upon it. Let it show in your character. He then says, وَلَهُ صِفَةٌ إِذَا جَالَسَ الْعُلَمَاءَ كَيْفَ يُجَالِسُهُمْ. And there's also a way for him to sit with the ulama. How do you sit with them? A lot of the problems that we face here in America is that people, they don't sit with the ulama. And if they did sit with the ulama, they had either bad intentions or they didn't have the proper etiquettes of sitting with the ulama. And as they say, the one-eyed man is king in the land of the blind. The one-eyed man is king in the land of the blind. It's easy for me to come up here and sit in front of you and puff out my chest. But how many people actually know the adab of teaching and learning? And the person who was nurtured by the ulama is a person who's going to be humble and is going to benefit the people. Al-Ajurri rahimahullah ta'ala, he then says, وَلَهُ صِفَةٌ إِذَا تَعَلَّمَ مِنَ الْعُلَمَاءِ كَيْفَ يَتَعَلَّمُ وَلَهُ صِفَةٌ كَيْفَ يُعَلِّمُ غَيْرَهُ. And there's also a way when he learns from the ulama, how to learn from them. And there's a way on how to teach, what books to start off with, what masjids can I cannot go to, what conferences can I cannot go to, what people can I cannot work with, what do I teach, how do I teach. They explained all of it. There's a sifa for this. He then says, وَلَهُ صِفَةٌ إِذَا نَظَرَ فِي الْعِلْمِ كَيْفَ يُنَظِرُ. And he also has a specific way of debating. We know in Islam, sometimes it's permissible to debate. And it's permissible to have a discussion. But there is a way. It's not haphazard. It's not how you want it to be. There is a way. There's a sifa. He then says, وَلَهُ صِفَةٌ إِذَا أَفْتَى النَّاسَ كَيْفَ يُفْتِي. And there's also a way for him to give verdicts to the people. Someone asks him a question, how to answer that question, when to answer the question, and when not to answer the question. When not to answer the question, as some of the Sahaba said. When you see a man sitting down, and people ask him question after question, and he answers every single question, know for sure that he's majnoon. Every question is not to be answered. Every person is not to be responded to. There is an adab of iftah. And from the chaos that we live here in America is the lack of this etiquette. Everyone's a mufti, everyone gives a fatwa, and there's chaos. Those who give the fatwa don't have the proper adab, most of them. And those who seek the fatwa, they don't have the proper adab al-istiftah, of seeking fatwa. He then says, وَلَهُ صِفَةٌ كَيْفَ يُجَالِسُ الْأُمَرَاءِ إِذَا ابْتُلِيَ بِمُجَالَسَتِهِمْ وَمَنْ يَسْتَحِقُ أَنْ يُجَالِسَهُ وَمَنْ لَا يَسْتَحِقُ. And there's also a way for him to sit with the rulers when he's afflicted with sitting with the rulers. If you have to go to some place, some government place, there's no way, you can't get out of it. You have to go. There is a special way, a do and a don't. He then says, and those who deserve to be sat with, and those whom you should not sit with. It's very important. Every single person you are not to sit with. O student of knowledge, you're not to sit with every single person. And if you're forced, then there's a way that you do it. There's someone that you take as your friend, and there's someone who's an associate. There's someone who's your khalil, your close, intimate friend. And then there's someone that you give salams to and you walk down the street with. There's a difference. And one who mixes between the two is going to cause great harm. Al-Ajurri rahimahullah ta'ala, he then says, وَلَهُ صِفَةٌ عِنْدَ مُعَاشَرَتِهِ لِسَائِرِ النَّاسِ مَنْ لَا عِلْمَ مَعَهُ وَلَهُ صِفَةٌ كَيْفَ يَعْبُدُ اللَّهَ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ فِيمَا بَيْنَهُ وَبَيْنَهُ قَدْ أَعَدَّ لِكُلِّ حَقٍّ يَلْزَمُهُ مَا يُقَوِّيهِ عَلَى الْقِيَامِ بِهِ وَقَدْ أَعَدَّ لِكُلِّ نَازِلَةٍ مَا يَسْلُمُ بِهِ مِنْ شَرِّهَا فِي دِينِهِ. He says, and there is an etiquette for everything else with regards to the rest of the people. A talib al-ilm is married. How to spend time with your wife. We get asked the question all of the time. What do I do? I'm overseas, I have a wife. How do I study? So the man just asked me, what do you do when you're overseas? How many hours do you read? There's a sifa. And there's a balance. And no one is to do any type of injustice. Your friends, the kuffar, the neighbors, someone who's an opponent, who's an enemy. Al-muhim, there is a sifa, there's a khuluq, there's an adab for everything that you do and every type of people that you have to deal with. And he says, and the true alim is the one who has prepared for every single haqq, every right and responsibility, something that will make it easy for him to fulfill. And every single nazil, every new issue, every modern day issue, that he will be safe from the harm of that modern day issue. Because we know in the fiqh al-Islami, we have the thawabit and then we have the nawazil. We have the affairs that have been clearly mentioned and explained in the kitab and in the sunnah and in the fiqh. How to pray, when to pray, how to make wudu, a woman's menses, marriage, divorce, buying and selling. That's thabit. But now we have a new issue now, the internet. Can I buy something on the internet? If I sent a woman a text message, does the divorce count? That's a nazir, that's a new thing. There was no text about that. So the faqih, the alim, he takes the general proof, the general principles, and he applies it to the modern day situation. And this is called a nazila. What do we do with what's going on in the Muslim world today? Nawazil. And you need ilm. And if you don't have the proper knowledge and the proper akhlaq, you're going to fall into a pit. of fitan and of shar. So he says there's a sifa dealing with new modern day issues. And this he then says, عالم بما يجتلب به طاعات عالم بما يدفع به البليات قد اعتقد الأخلاق السنية أو سنية واعتزل الأخلاق الدنية. He says he is learned of how to obey Allah and how to reap the acts of obedience of Allah Azza wa Jal. He is learned, he's known, he knows well of how to avoid fitan and baliyah, a trial, tribulation, turmoil. And he has believed in, he has the akhlaq, he has the aqeedah, the iman, and the amal of the lofty things of Islam, the good things, a good deen, good khuluq, good character. And he has avoided the akhlaq that are low and base. This is comprehensive speech. We can make a long, drawn-out lecture dissecting this piece by piece, but just look. This alim who died in the 4th century is as if he talked about everything that's going on in our lives today. Most problems come from one of two things in closing. It's either ignorance or it's either oppression. As Allah Azza wa Jal clearly mentioned in the Quran, Allah says, and we presented the amana, the trust or the responsibility to the heavens and the earth and the mountains. فَأَبَيْنَ أَن يَحْمِلْنَهَا وَأَشْفَقْنَ مِنْهَا. But they were afraid. And they said, no, we don't want that amana, Ya Rabb. وَحَمَلَهَا الْإِنسَانِ. But man, he took that amana. And Allah Azza wa Jal said about him, إِنَّهُ كَانَ ظَلُومًا جَهُولًا. Man is oppressive and he is ignorant. And Shaykh Islam Ibn Taymiyyah mentioned every single vice in the world, every evil in the world comes from one of these two reasons. It's either dhulm, oppression, or it's either jahl. So whenever you find khalal, mistakes, and gaping holes in da'wah or in tulab al-ilm or imams of masjid, it comes from one of these two reasons. Either they don't know the proper etiquettes, or they are oppressive to themselves and oppressive to others. Wallahi, we don't have enough time. I just got the note here, 5 minutes. I'm just barely getting warm. Allahumma musta'an. Al-Muhim, I would advise myself firstly, and advise all of these, mashallah, beautiful brothers here today, especially the shabab. And alhamdulillah, there's a lot of shabab here, and a lot of conferences that we've been to, a lot of different masjids. Sometimes you don't find that many shabab. But here today, mashallah, I see the majority of the participants are shabab, are youth, young, strong, talented young men. Take advantage of what Allah Azza wa Jal has given you. Take advantage of Allah Azza wa Jal's ni'mah upon you. Go overseas, study, learn your deen, practice, study hard. Because your ummah, here, overseas, wherever they are, your ummah needs ilm. And they need proper ilm. They need simple, clear, authentic knowledge. Simple, clear, and authentic ilm. And that can only come from the shabab, the youth, the young men that Allah Azza wa Jal has given a future. As for us who have become older, we have different habits, different sins, years out of our lives that we've wasted. You have a better opportunity, bi'idhnillah Azza wa Jal, to be much better. And inshallah subhanahu wa ta'ala to raise the bar. So I advise myself and I advise all of the shabab, kull shabab. If I advise 50 shabab, Allah alam, how many will actually listen? I advise all of you to fear Allah Azza wa Jal and to take advantage of the opportunity to seek ilm. And perhaps you'll be from those individuals that Allah Azza wa Jal will use to support His deen. And you'll be from those individuals, bi'idhnillahi subhanahu wa ta'ala. You'll be from Ahlul Hadith. You'll be from the students of Hadith. The people who will be under the banner of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and who will drink from his sweet pond. That pond, one drink that you take, you'll never become thirsty ever again. Inshallah Azza wa Jal, you'll be from those individuals that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Inna awla nas bi yawm al-qiyamah aktharuhum alayya salatan. The people who deserve me the most on the Day of Judgment, the people who will be closest to me on the Day of Judgment, are those who send the most prayers on me. And those who send the most prayers on the Prophet ﷺ, without any doubt, are the Tulab wal Hadith. And as the great scholar of Islam, Imam al-Shafi'i, rahimahullah ta'ala, said, لَوْلَا أَصْحَابُ الْمَحَابِرِ لَخَطَبَتِ الزَّنَادِقَةُ عَلَى الْمَنَابِرِ. The defenders of the deen are none other but the students of Hadith. Al-Shafi'i said, if it wasn't for the people with the ink pots, the ink wells, the Ahlul Hadith, he says, then the Zanadiqah, the hypocrites and the heretics and the kuffar will be upon the minbars. So know for sure that Allah Azza wa Jal uses you, bi'idhnillah Azza wa Jal, to defend His religion. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على عبده ورسوله نبي محمد وجزاكم الله خيرا.